Hello and welcome to part 2 of the Bronco Exchange. I'm your host, Dr. Shanessa Fenner, and we have Bryan Miranda from Darden and Miranda Insurance. Now, Bryan, there's something that I want to talk about that, of course, has hit Fayetteville several times lately.
Sure.
Hurricanes.
Yes.
Oh, Bryan, hurricanes.
Yes.
I want to first talk about flood insurance.
Okay. Good topic. So flood insurance in North Carolina is not part of the standard homeowners policy.
Why?
Well, it's a separate peril altogether. You have to purchase that. FEMA will underwrite it, and then we can sell it to someone in the agency. So everybody, and this is a big misnomer. Some people will come and say, look, I'm not sure if I need this coverage. I'm not in a floodplain. First and foremost, everybody, every address, doesn't matter where you are in the country, you're in a flood zone. You might be in a low hazard zone, like most of Cumberland County is, or you might be in a high hazard zone, which is more apt to flood. However, 25% of all flood losses every year happen in low hazard zones. Think of all the flooding we've seen since 2016 just in Cumberland County. Most of that has occurred in low hazard zones. So when somebody comes in for a homeowner's policy, we have this discussion with them. These are all the things that are covered, but two of the biggest perils that are not covered are flood and earthquake. And we can quote that. Now the coverage for flood, especially if you're in a low hazard zone, can be really inexpensive. You might be in the $400 a year range for flood insurance, but it's an invaluable product if you need it, as so many people have found out.
Okay, all right. Earthquakes, like today at school we had an earthquake drill. Okay.
How'd that go?
It went very well. They dropped, they covered themselves, and they held on.
Yes.
So let's talk about that, earthquakes.
You know, I will tell you, in my 17-year career, we've had questions about earthquake coverage. We've yet to endorse a policy. It's not covered on the standard North Carolina. You have to ask for it by endorsement, and you can get it here. We get kind of complacent because we don't think that it may happen, but a lot of people know this, but just south of us in Charleston, South Carolina, one of the most active fault lines in the U.S. runs through Charleston, South Carolina. The seismology department at Charleston Southern registers readings on a daily basis. It could happen. So it's a great conversation to have. It's not significantly expensive to get, but it is something that you want to talk to your agent about. Every company is going to price it a little bit differently, but you can add the endorsement to your homeowner's policy.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about earthquake insurance. How is that kind of different? Because I know like states like California and all, they have to have certain mountings on the wall, and when they hang pictures up, there's certain things that they have to use and all.
Yes.
So how does that work here though?
There is no requirement necessarily in that regard, although if you do go downtown, you can see some earthquake rods that go through the buildings downtown. If you go to Husk Hardware, for instance, and look there, they've got earthquake rods that you can still see coming through from earthquakes in years gone by.
Okay.
But there's not necessarily a requirement for that like there is in some states that are more earthquake prone, like California. You're more apt to see discounts in the flood arena and the wind and hail arena for houses that are built at the coast, and the type of material that are used and the type of construction that is used, whether they are storm shutters, etc. That's where you start to see discounts in terms of catastrophic type events.
Okay, now back to hurricanes, Bryan. Let's say we know a hurricane's coming, because of course they give us a week or two, in advance and all. We go buy up all the water and everything that we need, the batteries and flashlights and spam and all. Should we take pictures? Talk to me about that, taking pictures, and tell me, is that something that we need to do?
It's a great question. We always share with our clients that no matter how little a claim is, it's a significant emotional event. It doesn't matter if it's a car claim or a home claim, because you've lost something. And so it's hard to remember when that happens for something small, much less something as big as a fire or a hurricane. So it's a great idea to either take a video inventory of your home or a photographic inventory of your home. Just go room to room, describe the items. This is a 42-inch Vizio television. I bought it in 2016. And just talk about that. And you should be able to send it to your agent, and they should be able to electronically attach that to your file, so that in the event of a claim, the first thing the insurance company is going to send you is an inventory sheet. It's so much easier to do it just by dictation than by memory, because you have so many other things going on in your life at that time. So that's a great thing to do, is to take either a photographic or a video inventory of your house.
Okay. Any other preparations that we should do in case of something like that?
The tough part is, and we have this discussion via video with a lot of our clients before hurricanes come in, as much as we try to be there at the agency in the event of a catastrophe, sometimes we can't get there either. So before the storm hits, have a copy of your policy. If you don't have a copy of your policy, it shouldn't be any more difficult than a phone call to your agent and say, I need a copy of my declarations page. The declarations page tells you exactly what your coverage is for every item that's in the policy. Make sure that you have a direct dial number to the claims department of whoever is insuring you, because again, if you can't get to your agent, you can call that claim in direct. Make sure that you have at least 3 or 4 good restoration companies and their phone numbers that you can call. I can tell you from personal experience in this last storm, in the middle of it, 65-mile-an-hour winds, the roof blew off the top of my house, and I had to be able to call someone. Fortunately, I found someone that would come out and help tarp the roof. But you got to have those numbers ahead of time, because if you don't, trying to get them when the power's out or you don't have access to your phone or a computer is almost impossible. So those preparations are going to be extremely important to make sure that you know who you're going to call. Also, it's a great idea to call your agent and say, what's your disaster plan? If something happens, are you coming to the agency? If there's no power at the agency, what is your plan from there? Because you want to know how the response is going to be in your greatest time of need. They know how the response is when they're taking the premium. How are they going to do it when the claim comes?
Okay. Let me ask you something, Bryan. Let's say you have a person that doesn't have flood insurance.
Yes.
Okay, they've been listening to the TV for about a week and a half.
Yes.
They see that Hurricane Shanessa is coming.
Yes.
Okay. Is there like a certain deadline that they have to call your agency to go ahead and get that into effect before Hurricane Shanessa hits?
You know, I would think that Hurricane Shanessa would be a Category 5 for sure. If nothing else, it would definitely be a Category 5.
Yes.
That's an awesome question to ask because it's 30-day wait.
Oh.
So if you were to call me today and say, hey, I would love to have flood insurance, we would love to sell it for you. Just come on down to the agency. Let's get it quoted. Once we've got it quoted, let's sign the application. 30 days from today, it'll be effective. There's a couple of caveats to that. If you go out and you are buying a home and you're in a high hazard zone and the mortgage company requires it, then it's immediate. So you can do that when that situation occurs. But beyond that, if you're in a low hazard zone and you need it because hey look, Hurricane Shanessa is going to be here in 4 days, you're not going to have that coverage for 30 days, and that's a FEMA rule. So it kind of prohibits people from just adding new risk into the program when the risk is almost assured versus the potential for loss.
Because I know one thing, I watch the Weather Channel a lot.
Yes.
And I know one thing that they said that concerns me is they're saying that these hurricanes, Bryan, are going to become like a regular routine. And that bothers me because that means that next year this time, you know, we may have had 2 or 3 hurricanes to hit Fayetteville, you know.
Yes.
So that's a problem for me.
You know, when you look at just the level of destruction and really just everything from the water levels up to the Person Street Bridge to the Cape Fear to Little River. I'm 47 years old. I've never seen this before. I saw it 2 years ago with Matthew. I'd never seen it prior to that. And so in a 2-year span, we've seen flood levels that haven't been around since before the 60s in this area. It's going to become more, and you don't just see it here, you see it across the U.S. Think about what happened just to Houston last year. So, and we're still in peak season, so we're not done yet.
I know, and that scares me.
You and me both.
Yes.
You and me both.
Okay. Let's talk about robberies.
Yeah.
What can people do to help ensure that they'll get properly reimbursed? And should they take a video, keep a property inventory? Let's talk about robberies as well.
Yeah, you know, property crime is going to happen no matter when. We're in peak season for that as well. We do see a spike in property theft after Halloween. It sounds crazy. I encourage people that come to the agency around this time of year, if they're going to be out participating in trick or treat, set up in your driveway. Don't set up in your home. When you open that front door up, the person at the door, who may be the cutest kid in the world, absolutely there for the right reasons for trick or treat and candy, may have somebody standing behind them that's just trying to check out what's inside your house. They want to see if there's a TV on the wall. How close is it? Where's the alarm pad? So you do see a spike in property claims after Halloween, and also as we get closer to Christmas, you see that spike as well. Be vigilant about your alarm. If you have an alarm in your house, set it. Even if it's not connected to a central station somewhere, set it. Make it a noisemaker. Make it difficult for people to get in. If you have a front door that does not have a storm door on it, get a storm door. They're not significantly expensive, but anything that you can do to create an extra barrier to entry is going to keep your house from hopefully not being the one that gets broken into.
Okay, all right, okay. So what are some of the more unusual claims that you've received, and how do you deal with those?
Wow, you know, we've had some very interesting ones. We had one just recently with the hurricane, and it was just one of those kind of insult to injury type scenarios where we had wonderful couple. They got storm damage and power went out on Saturday, evacuated on Sunday. They were able to come back to the home, but before they could come back and the power came back on, the power surged. So not only did they have all this hurricane damage to the house, but when the power surged, it caused a kitchen fire.
Oh, stop it.
So the fire struck in the kitchen. Because the power had come back on, the air conditioner was running, so it got into the ductwork and the whole house filled with smoke. And so you see that, though. You see it in commercials all the time of these crazy things that happen, but those commercials are generated because they actually have occurred. So that's probably one of the more crazy claims that I think that we have gotten in a long time, but they're being well taken care of, and you know, our hearts just go out to people when that kind of thing happens. You can't say anything other than, wow, I am so sorry.
Any other unusual scenarios that you'd like to share through the years?
You know, we had one where we had a uncle who invited his nephew over and said, can you help me trim some trees in the backyard? The nephew said, absolutely, I'd love to help you, Uncle. I wanted to be able to do that for you. So the nephew grabs his own chainsaw, goes over to his uncle's property, and helps to cut down some trees. And the nephew, with his own chainsaw, cuts his own leg, not off, but cuts his own leg,
Oh my goodness.
and tries to sue the liability coverage for his uncle because he cut his leg.
Stop it.
It was craziness. It really was. Something that really was going to be just a great good deed turned into something that, you know, splits up a family unit. I couldn't even believe it when I was being told about the claim. So.
Wow. Okay, all right. I assume that there's a licensing process to do insurance. Tell us about how that works, and does everyone who you work with need a license, and are there different types?
There are different types. So it's about a 40-hour licensing class for property and casualty, and so you can work administratively in an office. You can't, you know, discuss coverages. You can't talk about policies, but you can have somebody that maybe does answer and transfer in your office without being licensed. The licensing process, at least now, you go take a 40-hour class. You sit for the class test. If you pass that, then you sit for the state exam, and then once you pass the state exam, you're eligible to be appointed by any individual company that you can go to work for. And then you also would do the same thing separately for your life and health license, long-term care, medical supplement. So pretty much anything that you can sell from an insurance standpoint is going to have its own independent license.
Okay, all right. So I want to ask you something. Of course, we have situations where people take out insurance policies on people and all. If things seem kind of peculiar, like if there's a sudden death or something that seems kind of fishy, do you all investigate and make sure that, you know, nothing's fraudulent or anything?
You know, over the years, and that's a great question, you have to have some degree, some tie of insurable interest to the person that you're wanting to insure. You can't say, hey, look, I'd like to get a life insurance policy on my neighbor. You know, meanwhile, behind the scenes, you and this neighbor are having this whole issue about a fence line or something.
My neighbor.
Yeah, so there has to be some degree of insurable interest. But yeah, you know, the insurance industry has done a great job of policing itself. Almost 20% of all premium every year goes to pay for insurance fraud. That's a huge amount. That's billions of dollars that every single year go to help prevent insurance fraud. So I feel like the industry has done a great job of trying to, the client doesn't always see it that way because they're asked a lot of different questions in the underwriting process, and sometimes they feel like, am I being interrogated? But that's not the purpose. The purpose is to make sure that the people who are following the rules, which is the majority, are getting the right price for the people that maybe are trying to skirt the rule a little bit.
Okay, all right. So Bryan, if there's anything else you'd like to share with us about your insurance company, and why should we come and do some insurance policies with you?
Well, you know, we'd love to help anybody that would love to come out, and if nothing else, just have a free review. Let us just sit down and have a conversation. We don't want to get in the way of any loyalties that anybody has, but there may be some areas that you need to ask some questions about that maybe you're not comfortable doing in your, you know, where you are. Okay. We take it very seriously, but we have a lot of fun. I have the best staff in Fayetteville. Couldn't ask for any more than what I get from the folks in my office. We're a family there as much as we are a place to do business. So.
Okay. Please give your phone number to your business.
910-483-3611. You can also find us at dardenmiranda.com, and you can also find us on Facebook at Darden Miranda and Associates.
Okay. Well, thank you, Bryan.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk more about hurricanes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you, audience, for viewing the Bronco Exchange. I'm your host, Dr. Shanessa Fenner. Have a good one.
Hypnotized, familiar stranger, wait, hold up, don't